Hello, everyone. We are CRI Advantage, and today our presentation is going to be on cybersecurity, how to protect my small to mid-sized business. I wanted to give a thank you to IM Tech for having us here virtually today. And if you do have any questions today, Dallas Blattner is available to answer all of the Q&A. So I'll turn it over to Leo.
Hi, thank you. And I am very honored that IM Tech has given me the opportunity to give this presentation on how to protect your small to medium-sized business and how to share some of our experience and best practices that we've seen over the last couple of years where we've provided advisory service to a multitude of businesses across multiple industries and allowed them to secure their businesses. What I want to do is in this particular presentation is just give an outline very quickly on how I'm going to present that. And the first thing I want to touch bases all on is a question that consistently pops up where businesses either explicitly tell me or implicitly have the impression that, you know, they're not too concerned about cybersecurity because they don't know why somebody would hack them. And in a lot of cases, these are businesses that are fairly small. Once we've discussed that topic, I'd like to dive into the a question of like, what is cybersecurity? And of course, immediately get into the recommendations that we have on our lessons learned. And I'll review those in points throughout after that particular aspect. And then we'll wrap up really quickly with a couple of bonus points. So the question that I get asked a lot is, who would want to hack me or hack my small business, right? Now, for me, this actually is the complete reverse of that question. Businesses really shouldn't be asking why anybody would want to hack me. The question really should be, why shouldn't hackers target them? Because they've got the minimal security experiences, security protection. There are large companies that have full cybersecurity teams that protect their businesses and industries across their entire organization 24/7 at all the time. Small to medium-sized businesses usually have very minimal protections. So as a bad guy or a hacker, why not target the small to medium-sized businesses? This is the other part that I really kind of want to get across. There's an impression that in the past, your hacker was this guy who was in the basement and anonymously going out there and just having fun. Well, there's been a shift in the last couple of years where um, present hacking is an industry. And I really want to share some points on that because I think this is a huge point that addresses, how to protect your industry when you actually know who is trying to hack you. Now, here's some statistics that I want to share because this actually drives the whole industry part. The statistics, and these are fairly from 2021 and earlier. There's a lot of them that are coming out, and actually these are only a subset. And I would actually say that I feel like the numbers here are on the low end because they're reported, and the unreported ones I think contribute quite a lot to them. If you look at the statistics here on the cybersecurity aspect, you can basically see even in the first point that businesses have lost $26 billion in email compromises. As you kind of keep going down this list of compromises, you can basically see the numbers are always, 2.5 billion, 25 billion, 1.1 million per attack. Um, a lot of these are also on the ease of the malware instances where it's like 94% of the malware have been delivered by email. This is a very easy delivery system to go out there and attack a business. Again, if you look at when you continue looking at these aspects, it's the 1.33 billion and is estimated for this year of 2022. Um, the other part of it is that a lot of the hacks are financially motivated. So in other words, they're out there to make the money, right? Now, one of the things that I like to do is take those statistics of a cybersecurity victim and say, all right, let's take a step back and say, if we were looking at this as a business, how would we actually look at those statistics? It's actually a little bit of eye-opening for me because this flips everything around, basically saying, hey, instead of a victim of 26 billion, now you have a target market of 26 billion. and $3.5 billion dollars and $25 billion dollars for uh, um, that you're trying to estimate. And one of the ones that I find the most significant is the successful opportunities can now be translated to say, hey, if you are successful in one uh, hacking attempt, that could equate to $1.4 million dollars every time you're successful. And then looking at the success rate of email attacks of 95%, now you're looking at a vector of delivery system where you can see that as a business, this is very attractive to anybody who's out there saying, hey, I want to convert this into a lucrative business. Now, this is the other part that I really like to put into, and it ties to this, all the statistics above. When we look at the US target business market, and this is basically from RSA presentation, 99% of all businesses are SMBs, and there's an estimate of 31.7 million SMBs in the United States. Of those, in 2020, 28% of them, had a cybersecurity attack. And when you look at their threat landscape, 87% of them outsource their IT operations. So in that case, what that translates to me is that not only do they not have an IT operations or somebody dedicated to their IT operations, a lot of these SMBs actually don't even have a cyber person or somebody knowledgeable enough to actually protect their systems. So one of the things that this translates to is that if we look at the potential market out there, in other words, SMBs, there is the current SMB uh, organizations make 99% of all US businesses, and only 47 of those actually employ only US employees. And of this number, of the 31.7 million SMBs that are out there, 28% of them have experienced cyber attacks in 2020. Another very interesting aspect of this is that out of all the 31 million SMBs that are out there, 87% of them outsource their IT operations. In other words, these organizations actually don't even have their own IT departments. And to me, this also means that if they don't even have their IT departments, they actually don't have anybody who specializes in cybersecurity and how to help them secure their businesses across the board. And this is an assessment that not just shows a vulnerability to SMBs, small to medium-sized businesses, but also to state, local, tribal, and territories, SLTTs that also have this same exposure. And this is a sign because they also utilize the same managed service providers that are out there. And another very interesting fact is that a lot of these SMBs that actually provide IT operations and cybersecurity to small to medium-sized businesses are in and of themselves SMBs that are vulnerable to these cybersecurity attacks. So the big takeaway that I want everybody to hear and basically try to espouse when they're looking at how to protect their small to medium-sized businesses is that hacking is not that anonymous individual anymore. Hacking is an industry. And very recently, I saw an article, and you can look this up yourself. Is that there's the Conti ransomware organization actually has a full business model. In other words, they have full-time employees. They provide those employees with bonuses and incentives to figure out how to improve their code, the ransomware hacking system, and they provide incentives and bonuses based on that model as a full financial organization. Um, the realization is that your SMB, your business, is a commodity to this marketplace, and they're looking at it as a huge growth in the next couple of years. It is so lucrative that they're investing themselves in business transfer, digital transformation, looking at AIs and how to expand that, because they're looking at not just million, but billions and billions of dollars that they can actually look for in the next couple of years as their takeaway for improvement. Now, taking a step back, one of the other things that I want to address, because it's also vital to figure out, well, what does this mean if I have this threat that's out there? How do I protect my organization? Well, one of the first things that I really look at is try to understand what is cybersecurity. for myself, one of the definitions that I like of cybersecurity is, Dr. Eric Cole has this definition called cybersecurity is understanding, managing, and mitigating risk of critical data from being disclosed, altered, destroyed, or denied access to. So when a business really looks at their organization and they think, well, what can I protect? I really kind of look at this as it is a business driven, it's a risk based model that's based on your critical data. Now, before we go too far, I always like to just share immediately what our suggestion is. Your whole point of this presentation is to come in and say, hey, help me secure my organization. Here's our recommendations. Going down it, it's basically you need a full asset inventory of what you have externally and internally. Conduct a base assessment, and I like to do there's a lot of different assessments that are out there on frameworks. I'll do a present. I'll go over a couple of them later on in this presentation, and that's also the comparative part where you compare them to a standard that's out there. You prioritize your existing applications and services. And what I mean by that is if you have something internally that you're using, Microsoft Office or a full suite, then have you do an analysis on those particular ones and figure out, are there any additional security or cybersecurity modules that are in there that have not either been, or settings that have not either been turned on or evaluated to actually secure your business with your present existing applications and service. So in other words, why buy something if you have something that you haven't turned on? Another thing that I really try to work with businesses is really to focus on a lot of the IT basics and fundamentals. Simple things like password management, backups, and successful backup managements where you test them. You know, once you have all those in place, then identifying your critical assets, implementing some kind of cybersecurity training, and there's a lot of resources available for that. The very last thing, and one of the more important things that I think is critical for a cybersecurity landscape or attack is, do you have a plan that you know what to do when this happens? If you do, when's the last time you actually practice it? To me, this is kind of like a fire drill. Do you have a plan for when a fire goes off? Okay, great. How often do you practice that? And that's one of the more critical components of it. Here's another part that I really like to share a lot, and I hope that everybody can take a snapshot of this because I find that these resources, and this is just a tiny subset of the resources that are available, but the 5 links that are here available from NIST, CISA, and a couple of these other organizations are extremely useful and have, I want to say tens, if not hundreds, of additional links that you can actually track down and help your own business with. Now, tying this all back to our recommendations initially, one of the things that is really critical is to figure out what is a critical asset. This is a vital question because every business as an organization is completely different and unique in their own sense, but in also a unique sense that a lot of them are the same. So for me, I start with what is a critical asset for a particular business. And this means data facilities, services, and other components, which if they are destroyed or rendered unavailable, will affect your operations. So in other words, this translates to a critical asset is anything that gives you a really, really bad day in IT. Once we understand what that critical asset, the other thing that one of the things that I like to look at is the human component of it. There's a lot of research in here. I just pulled this one out because I kind of like the IBM cybersecurity report. It is shown that um, the bulk of almost every single breach that's out there, 95%, and I see fluctuations between 92 and 97% of all breaches is tied to some human error. Now, there's 2 aspects of looking at this from the human error side. One is you work with your employees to figure out how to provide them the education, the knowledge, et cetera, to help you secure their business. I'm a very big proponent of that. I don't think you can lose sight of that. The other aspect of it is to remove the human aspect of it from the operation side. I translate this into saying, hey, how do we automate this so that it reduces the amount of error that's in there, automation, etc. A lot of vendors focus in this area because that's where they can actually contribute to the automation component. To me, it's a juggling act between the two of working with your human side to make sure that they have the knowledge and education that they have to help you. I find that it is a lot more uh, knowledgeable, a lot more effective working with your human aspect because they're the people who actually will spot something going wrong. A lot of things with the automation side, it tends to do the same thing. It helps because the repeatable process of millions and millions of logs and data points can now be reduced and actually automated quite effectively to actually give you a very prompt response into detection. So in other words, if somebody's attacking you and they're trying to do a brute force attack, etc., a lot of these automation components will facilitate you uh, in remediating and reducing the speed of reducing the speed of exposure to that uh, um, compromise, and that therefore minimizing the effect to your organization. Now, all that said, and with all the different components that are out there, and I'll have to say that sadly this has been going on for almost 20 years across the board, where people have been very concerned about cybersecurity. The at least the reports that I hear back, and I want to say the reality, but the reports that I see consistently over and over and over, is that only 20% of small to medium-sized businesses actually are prepared to respond to any kind of cybersecurity incident. In other words, there's not even one out of four. Only one out of four businesses actually has a plan that says, "Here's what I'm going to do." So just by having that question of like, if this happens, this is what I will do, is going to put you a lot further in the process of securing your business. And if you practice it, that's a huge component of resolving a lot of the issues that are exposed when you practice your incident response plan. Now, I wanted to get back to this slide very quickly because the this is basically tied to a lot of our recommendations. The recommendations that we had above, where I've just consolidated a whole bunch of these, it's really going over a lot of these available references that we've encountered from the FTC, FCC, CIA, CISA, the government publications that are out there, the frameworks that are out there, the standards that are out there. And I'll go over these in a couple of minutes. But what we did is basically, from what we've been doing for the last 5 years, we've kind of consolidated a lot of those into our recommendations where we start off with. And then what we try to do is per industry or per business, we try to direct our customers and clients to the framework that actually works best for them in their industry. So, for example, one of the things is that the FCC does have these top 10 tips for small businesses that you can review at your leisure. The FTC also has these recommendations that they also provide. And this is another tip, as I'm hoping that you can see a progression of tips that is going through here. So there's small to medium-sized business guides that are also out there. This is the one that we kind of use for all our businesses. And the reason I put this particular one out is that there's a change from CIS controls version 7 to CIS version 8. These are basically the ones that we recommend for all businesses to start off with, because if you can hit each of these levels, every single one of the new 18 controls actually has sub controls in there that will do the basic foundational security for your business. And you can go to the CIsecurity.org controls V8, sign up for that. It's free. It's a checklist that you can provide, not just a checklist that shows you what needs to be there, but also some tentative recommendations that are out there. Now, the reason we start off with this is because this is also one of those where in a case where a business that may be specializing in something will get a handbook in how to do, uh, say, how to do a security component of it. Well, one of the things that we found out is that it doesn't really translate one for one. So even somebody who has an IT background may look at that and say, well, I don't understand how this document translates into a practical, tactical implementation on securing my business. So there is a skill set that needs to be done. And if you're not familiar with that, we encourage you to go out there and connect with a cybersecurity service of some kind to actually help you explain how to take these controls and translate them into practical implementations for your business. And what I'd like to wrap up my presentation once again by presenting our recommendations, which again are really just a subset of all the other frameworks that are above. And we try to condense this and basically focus this on small to medium sized businesses. So, in other words, if you follow these recommendations, it's not going to guarantee 100% security, but it will give you a solid foundation for which to work and secure your business. Again, these are the available resources, and I highly recommend going to these top 5 links that we've presented there. These are extremely valuable, and there's a lot of the CISA.gov has free tools and services that they've identified. There's a lot of them that are available. Unfortunately, one of the problems with these 5 links is that there's a lot of things that are available to you, and as a small to medium-sized business, you may not know what's the right tool or the right service that will help you secure your business in the most effective manner. Unfortunately, a lot of this does translate into understanding what your organization is trying to accomplish, and that's why we suggest the critical assets and a review of those business requirements, and then creating a risk model based on those to understand and translate these controls into practical solutions for yourself. As a bonus tip, and this is something that I've found is a very, very low hanging fruit, is that a lot of businesses that have been hacked, you know, have basically unpatched internet facing services, or they've stored critical data on these internet facing services. So the two critical bonus tips that I want to offer you in this presentation is, if you're going to go back to your business right now, check to see if you have any unpatched internet facing services and make sure that there is no sensitive data on those services. Thank you very much for allowing me the opportunity to give you this presentation. And I'd like to make everyone aware that Dallas Blattner will be available to answer questions, and they're happy to meet you and make your acquaintance. And hopefully, if things work out for my schedule, I'll be able to be present there at this conference later in the day. Thank you very much.